Well, our boys are 26 and 31, and we still don't let them run free. They're in the basement. No, I made that part up. It's a great question, and I am very careful. I never speak harshly at all of the parents who are afraid. I don't do that, and I don't speak harshly about the people who feel they really need to program their kids' lives as their own lives are programmed to be enriched. I do think, though, that if you frame this differently, if you think about nature experience and free imaginative play as enrichments, you'll begin to do it more. I mean, I wrote a piece called, "If you want your kid to get into Harvard, tell them to go outside." When you begin to look at what the research suggests, you will begin to think about it as an enrichment. It's not just recreation. Recreation is terribly important, but if parents think about something as recreation, they tend to not take it as seriously. But this is so important. I think it's fundamental to human development to have that experience in nature and to have that time. You know, there's the loose parts theory in play theory, which is the more loose parts there are in an environment, the more creative the play. Well, you know, when you're sitting in front of a video games have a lot of loose parts in the code, right? But the nature and the number of those loose parts are severely limited by the imagination of a probably overweight character sitting in a closed room with no windows in Silicon Valley. That's different from a tree, or from woods, or from a creek, sitting next to a creek, in which one is surrounded by loose parts that have an invisible and organization. Loose parts in which the dots have been connected. That's how you come up with great ideas. You see the loose parts, and then you see how they're connected, or at least you sense that. So helping parents think in that way, I think, will help them see this as an enrichment. The other thing is their fear. You know, that fear is in the top two reasons that parents tend not to let their kids go outside very much anymore. The truth is that the number of stranger abductions and the amount of violent crime toward children outside the home has actually been going down for about 30 years. But knowing that fact does nothing to reduce the fear. And I know that because as a parent, I felt that fear, and I knew better. I knew about it as a reporter. I reported on it. This is an irrational thing, but it's understandable. We are surrounded by media of all kinds now that are telling us all the time to be afraid. All you have to do is watch CNN or Fox, and you see how they take a handful of terrible crimes against children, and they repeat those crimes over and over and over again. Then they tell you about the trial over and over and over again. Then they tell you about the anniversary of that crime over and over and over again, to the point where you think that, you know, that half the people in this room are serial killers, right? I hope they're not.
And so by protecting our children so much, we're failing to help them build the skills they're going to need to navigate adult life. And I think that's the other side of this. We're holding our kids so tightly that then when they're 18 and they go off to college or work or whatever, they're really not prepared to handle things themselves. And I think the outdoors is a wonderful place for them to build those skills.
I make the case that in the long run, we may be putting our kids at greater risk.
Exactly.
And by not letting them have these small risks, and nature's great for that. And we have to think in terms of comparative risk. Yes, kids may break a bone, but what pediatricians say is that they're seeing far fewer broken bones among kids, and they're seeing more repetitive stress injuries among kids from computers. And those tend to last a lot longer. And at some point, we ought to talk about some alternative ways that parents can deal with that fear, because it's not enough just to talk about the fear. There have to be new ways to get kids connected to nature.